All right, last one for the modern Middle East, and we're going to take a look at the Syrian civil war. So basically in Syria, the Assad family had been ruling since the 1970s, and many people are going to be very unhappy with their authoritarian rule. It was believed that when Bashar is going to take over, that he's going to be a lot more liberal than his father, and that he was going to stop all the military crackdowns on the Muslim Brotherhood that had ended up killing between 10,000 and 40,000 people. When Bashar is going to be elected as president in 2000, he actually receives 97% of the vote, and he runs unopposed. He's the leader of the Ba'ath Party. He's commander-in-chief of the army. Many of them consider that he is the face of this new, younger generation in Syria, which is going to lead to a more liberal and modern country. Initially, it does seem that Bashar is going to acquire to make all these kinds of changes in the government and slowly make their way towards democracy. He promises to reduce governmental corruption and bring Syria into the 21st century with computer technology, internet, and also the cell phones. Peaceful protests against the regime is going to be inspired by successful mobilizations against other governments in the Middle East, such as Tunisia and Egypt and other Arab states. The government is going to do what the other governments do and have a relatively harsh crackdown and protest, but it does not stop the demand for reform. As the government continued to use more and more force, members of the military decided to break apart and form a new Free Syrian Army. This was, again, one of those unique situations because the military had been, in a large part, in support of the current regime, and they were seen as basically an extension of the regime. For the military to go against the government now is basically just a symbol of how bad and how severe the problems inside of Syria were. The Arab League and the United Nations tried to implement ceasefires and begin peace talks, but they failed to basically deal with the distrust between the two groups. Members of both groups eventually do meet and agree to a Geneva communique, which is going to be a roadmap for resolving the crisis. It is going to call for a ceasefire, full humanitarian access into Syria, and sets up steps for gradual political change or transition that is going to replace Assad. The Syrian government obviously is going to immediately reject the plan because Assad is not going to be willing to step down. After the attacks in Paris, another attempt is going to be made to orchestrate peace. This is called the Vienna Plan. Under the Vienna Plan, called for immediate ceasefire, peace negotiations, and removal of foreign forces, maintaining a secular government, presidential elections, and a new constitution. Again, plan is rejected by Assad, who feared that during the political vacuum, ISIS would step in and take over control of the country. Late in 2013, reports started to surface that Assad's government had been using chemical weapons in Damascus and also against anyone that was opposing his government. The action is going to cross the red line that President Obama had actually drawn in the sand, but international parties and the United States refused to actually get directly involved in the conflict. Russia, on the other hand, is going to agree that they will go in and help Assad dismantle the chemical weapon facilities. Syrian opposition to the Assad government was able to make substantial territorial gains, which does leave the door open for ISIS, which is what Assad had feared, what the United States feared, and also what Russia has feared. So ISIS is going to start taking over significant portions of the country. Russia and Syria, again, already had a history of cooperation. We do know that Russia has the only Middle Eastern port that they have access to inside of Syria. This friendship is going to continue in the 1980s when the two governments signed the Treaty of Friendship and Cooperation, which commits them to expanding and strengthening their friendship and cooperation in dealing with topics of government, economics, military, science, and also technology. It also stressed that the Soviet Union would respect Syrian policy of non-alignment to preserve international peace and security, so the United States and other allied countries would be allowed still to have access to Syria. Most importantly, the treaty states that in situations of crisis or something that's going to jeopardize the security of the country, the other would come in and eliminate the threat. This is the key for Putin to go into Syria in order to take military action. At first, Putin is not directly going to take military action. He's going to do international cooperation or international or international organization action by stopping the UN in any type of intervention in Syria, he is going to veto everything. Eventually, the situation is going to start to deteriorate in Syria, and Putin realizes he does need to send military support in to help Assad before he's overthrown. There are several reasons for Russian intervention into Syria. The U.S. and the UN had warned Russia not to get involved, but Russia had already been involved in Ukraine and also Crimea, and nothing happened. So they're seeing that their involvement in the world in international affairs is okay, and no one really truly is going to stop them. The Russian military is also going to see the annexation of Crimea and Ukraine as a success, but not this overwhelming victory with everyone supporting them. There's too many international organizations and governments that did not support their actions. So although they won, it still was considered to be a black mark on the Russian military. So this is now an opportunity for the military to go into Syria, save the day, become heroes, and also going to it's going to bolster Putin's support in his position inside of Russia. So Russia, at the same time this is going on, is going to start to see a drop in their oil prices. And as a result of that, again, Putin wants to increase his power. It's important for Putin to restore domestic and international relations. So again, successful military operations going to prove that the Russian military has improved and actually can conduct operations in areas that the United States regard as in their spheres of influence. Russia also is going to intervene to help the United States, which I know originally sounds a little bit odd, but the United States had opposed the Assad regime publicly on multiple occasions. The United States has said that they would not support anything in terms of solution in Syria unless Assad was going to step down. The only problem is the factions that in the government that are left cannot agree in order to create a coalition government. If Assad is going to fall, we've already saw ISIS was on the rise. If Assad falls, ISIS is going to come in and take over the government, and we want to avoid that. So the U.S. has publicly supported the removal of Assad. We cannot switch sides now and support him in order to prevent the ISIS from gaining control. The only solution is Russia. So Russia does intervene. It does help the United States out of a relatively sticky situation. The U.S. also had been arming rebel groups in this train and equip program that's considered to be directly involving Russia and Iran at the same time. So basically we go in, we provide them arms, we provide them with some basic military training, and then we send them off to actually fight the war themselves. Russia and Iran sees this as direct involvement, and this is actually going to further radicalize some of the groups against Assad and in support of ISIS. The lack of direct U.S. intervention after the use of chemical weapons is a challenge to the U.S. position in the Middle East. Besides Russia, Iran continues to support Assad with manpower and also with some financial support. The Arab League was providing weapons and money to Islamic extremists on the other side, and Russia was vetoing UN intervention. So Russia going in, really, it was the only way to try to stop the spread of ISIS, and at the same time, potentially reestablish Assad's government, only then to be overthrown afterwards. ISIS has been expanding territory in Syria, which has led to increased recruitment. The success is a direct threat to neighboring countries like Saudi Arabia, Israel, and obviously to the West as well. The Syrian civil war has been very, very complicated. The UN has reported numerous human rights violations that included war crimes, denying people access to food and water and health services. The war has also created millions of displaced citizens and refugees. The Assad regime today has regained the vast majority of territory inside of Syria. There are only a few ISIS strongholds that are left remaining. However, ISIS has inspired over 50 terrorist attacks in 18 different countries around the world. ISIS has also attracted an unprecedented number of foreign fighters to travel to Syria who may return to their home countries. They're going to be returning radicalized and ready to continue the fight from the home front. So this is homeland terror that a lot of people are concerned about. So what to do with all these returning soldiers coming back from the war is going to be an issue. There are some people that are calling sympathizers in the West to start to commit acts of terror inside of the United States. So what you guys are going to do now is we are going to take a look at the future of Syria, take a look at what to do with these radicalized fighters who are coming back, and potentially if the Assad government can make some kind of concessions or can make some kind of coalition government that would actually solve the problem inside of Syria and able to establish a government that's accepted by the people and accepted by the other international countries.